Hi, in this video we're going to show you how to remove the front wheel on a bike that's got the Shimano hub dynamo fitted and a Shimano Inter-M roller brake. The first thing you need to do is disconnect the electric cable that attaches to the hub dynamo. It's a black and grey plug and it's very straightforward. Just put your thumb and your forefinger over the adapter, give it a pull. It can be a little stiff, it's been on there for a while, and it just pops off. And that's your hub dynamo disc. Okay, the next job is just to slacken off your brake cable here with the adjuster on your brake lever. You've got a lock ring here, undo that anti-clockwise and then turn your adjuster clockwise all the way into the brake lever, and that slackens off your brake cable. The next thing we need to do is go down to the roller brake itself and use the adjuster down there to do the same thing. And at the bottom of the brake cable, where it attaches to the roller brake itself, you've got your cable adjuster here. If you undo the lock ring, lock nut there, which is a 10mm, and then you can turn the adjuster clockwise all the way down until you've taken up the slack. It may be on your bike that there's nothing to slacken off there. It's always a good practice just to make sure that that's slack. Now where the cable is actually connected to the roller brake itself, on the 10mm nut here, there is a circlip behind, and if you pull that nut downwards and out, it disconnects from the roller brake. And the easiest way to do it is to use a 10mm socket, a little handheld one here. Put your finger under the roller brake, push it up as if applying the brake, put your 10mm on, and it just clicks off. And it's the same to apply it in reverse when you're fitting it. Now that should just release your roller brake like so. If you find when you're pulling that down there's still not enough slack in the cable, you'll need to undo the 10mm nut here slightly and move it down the cable a couple of millimeters and then tighten it off again, and you'll be able to unclip it. And the top part of the cable here literally just lifts away, and then you're able to disconnect the front wheel. Okay, finally we just need to undo the axle nuts, which you need a 15mm ring spanner. Put it over your axle nut and undo it anti-clockwise. Just back it off with your fingers there a couple of turns. You don't need to take it right off. And the same on the opposite side. Same ring spanner, same 15mm. Undo it by hand until it's loose. Give the wheel a wobble and it drops out. Okay, now we're going to refit the wheel that we've just removed. The most important thing when you reinsert the wheel back into the forks is the top of the brake arm here, I'm pointing to with my finger, must insert into the lug on the fork. It's very important that they are engaged when you put the wheel up. So backing off your two axle nuts almost all the way, lift the wheel up, make sure the lug goes into that support on the fork, and then if you hold the wheel up with your hand, tighten the axle nuts hand tight both sides. If you're doing this on the ground and you load the bike onto it, the wheel will naturally be central anyway. Just tighten them off by hand. Then using your 15mm ring spanner, just nip those nuts up, just tighten up to hold the wheel in. Make sure you're central. And when you tighten up these axle nuts, to stop you over tightening them, good policy is just to use 3 fingers on the spanner when you're tightening, and that should prevent you from tightening them. So from this side, use your 3 fingers and tighten up, and if you're doing it on this side, you'd move around and tighten it the other way. Okay, now we've tightened the axle nuts, the next thing to do is reconnect your brake cable. Make sure it's inside the mudguard stay, and then your little barrel adjuster here just slots down into that brake arm, like so, and then your crimp here at the end of the brake cable, you've got the rear circular bit here that slots into the large circle and then pulls up into the slot holding it tight. And if you lift the brake arm slightly, it can make it a little bit easier, and just make sure that's all the way in. All that's left to do now is adjust your brake cable. It's very much a personal thing how much slack you want on the brake lever, but if you start off by tuning this adjuster up just a couple of turns, and then underneath tighten your lock nut clockwise while holding the adjuster, and using a 10mm spanner just lock that off so you're adjusted there. Now we'll just do the final adjustment up of the brake lever. Now back up with the brake lever, just take up your final adjustment if indeed you need any at all. You've got your brake lever there. If you want to make it firmer, you can just turn that anti-clockwise until you get the brake just where you want it, and tighten off the lock nut. Also just make sure that the wheel does spin freely when the brake's off, just to make sure it's not binding, and that's your brake readjusted. Now all we've got to do is reconnect your dynamo. Okay, now to finally finish the job of reinstalling your front wheel, we just need to reconnect your hub dynamo. With your cables here, sometimes they're on the inside of your mudguard stay. I actually prefer to have them just on the outside. It just makes sure it keeps clear of the wheel. Just check the shape of the plug here corresponds with the shape of your plug there, and you've got the little, you can't see it here really on the video, there's a little earth emblem on the outside which faces outwards. Use your thumb and forefinger, push it over, just click it on, make sure it's tight, and that's your hub dynamo reconnected.